Write down a sentence, please. The primary cause of fear is the pounding persistence of the I thought. The primary cause of fear is the pounding persistence of the I thought. Put quote marks around I on both sides. The primary cause of fear is the pounding persistence of the I thought. Would you agree that fear is a pretty terrible thing? So we're going to spend the next several sessions exploring fear from different viewpoints, trying to understand it, and I assure you, I'll guarantee you, as a matter of fact, that when you understand the nature of fear, the false nature of fear, the imposing nature of fear, understand it thoroughly, you'll then know what you must do with it, which is nothing, and it will vanish. Would someone care to raise their hand and tell us what they're afraid of as a start tonight? Anybody afraid of anything? Sarah?
I'm afraid of death.
Afraid of death? Duffy?
Afraid of aging.
Aging,
Yeah.
growing older. Who else, please? Ellen?
Death, embarrassment, people seeing my shameful thoughts, what I call my shameful thoughts.
Seeing through you?
Right.
Joe?
To a greater or lesser degree, everything. Certain things
Sure.
more than others.
Sure, everything. Did you have your hand?
Not being nice.
Not being nice.
Not having an answer.
Incidentally, just a side comment on that, then we'll go to Randy. Have you ever noticed that you don't mind being unnice, you just don't want other people to see it?
Right.
Being unnice is even a pleasure, isn't it? Huh? A false pleasure. Randy, please.
I'm afraid of being caught without knowing what to do.
Without your usual role,
Yes.
the way you behave habitually, and a new circumstance throws you out of the role, and so you don't know how to behave. You don't know which of your many selves you're supposed to protect or promote. That's painful, isn't it? Not knowing how to act. And so you know what we do? We play it safe, if we're in a crowd, by acting like everybody else does. You clap at the wedding and cry at the funeral. Try doing the opposite sometime. Especially cry at the funeral. I mean at the wedding. All right. We sense, in fact we know, not very deeply, but we sense that our thoughts are perishable. Of course they are. Just in the short time you've been in this room, and I've been in this room, we have thought hundreds, perhaps thousands of thoughts which arose in our minds, appeared briefly. We spoke from them, acted from them, emotionalized from them. The thought passed away, went away, and perished, did it not? How about the thought when you first spoke to someone, when you came in here, you said, hello, Sarah, hello, Joe, or whatever. I told Joe to get the clock. That thought is gone forever. Now, sensing the impermanence of thoughts, we become fearful, we become terrified, because having identified ourselves with the thoughts, we therefore say, I am going to come to an end just as that thought did. The thought will always come to an end. Your thought that you're unnice, the thought that you want to be nice, the thought that you are generous perhaps on some occasion, that thought will certainly come up. 1,000 times a day, 10,000 times a day. And so we get the feeling of self, of someone in action, by saying, my thoughts are me. Great, I'm okay as long as I can find lots of things to call me all during the day, and it doesn't make any difference what it is. I can be sorrowful, I can be cruel, I can even be afraid. As long as I'm afraid, I feel okay. I feel miserably okay as long as I can be tense and terrified. Gives me something to do with myself. It gives myself something to do with me. My minute or hour is occupied with being afraid. Look at the curious place we've come to in this discussion already. I'm afraid to come to the end of my fear. Isn't that ridiculous? Have you ever thought about that? You think about it right now. You or I, and those of you listening to this tape, are afraid to be without my fear. The death of fear would, of course, be the end of me. If I learn what it means to let thoughts rise as they do naturally and fade away as they do naturally, if I could understand that connection with my anxiety, fear, if I can understand that, if I can see that I am formed out of my rising thoughts with which I identify, that is, I say, I'm afraid, and don't forget all the connections that go with fear. For example, hatred. If you fear someone, you also hate him. There's no way to separate them. So it becomes quite necessary for me to survive as Vernon or Joe or Joan or Juan, to survive at all costs. In order to survive and not die, I must keep my fear and hatred going. If I don't, I will die, I say to myself, not seeing that I'm already living in a state of death while living. I must die to fear, die to the fear of dropping my fear, and go into this experience of not having a role to play. I meet my parents after having a quarrel with them. I meet my ex-wife, my ex-husband, ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend. I meet someone I work with after having a quarrel with them. I run into the boss somewhere after criticizing him and he found out about it. I fight with my wife, whatever. As I go into the room where he or she is, the only defense, get this, the only defense I know is to be afraid. As long as I'm afraid, I feel I can handle the situation okay. Because being in a state of tension is going to protect me, not from the boss or wife. They really are nothing. They're the secondary cause, which we'll get to eventually. But seeingly, or get a place for the gen. Yeah, okay, hi. Yeah. Right. As long as I can be afraid in my confrontation with the ex-wife, with the boss, I feel safe. I'm okay. Why? Because there is someone there meeting the crisis. Therefore, if there's someone there meeting the crisis, that someone there I've already identified